1. A Mother's Desperation. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I am 42 years old. Once I was a woman who dreamed of becoming an artist. Now I am simply Emily's mother. It was 3 in the morning when her coughing woke me again. My 7-year-old has a rare blood disorder called Bombay phenotype, one of the rarest in the world, the doctors said. Without a bone marrow transplant, my daughter doesn't have much time. I wasn't a match. None of my relatives were, and the treatment costs $800,000. $800,000. I don't have $800. That night, sitting in our damp basement apartment, holding my sleeping daughter, I made a decision. My mother left me only one thing when she died, a Ming Dynasty vase passed down through generations, blue and white porcelain with a plum blossom pattern. Her last words still echo in my mind. She told me this vase was our family's soul. She made me promise to protect it no matter what. But I'm a mother, and my daughter is dying. I'm sorry, Mom. I have to break that promise. As I lifted the vase from the cabinet, memories from 7 years ago crashed over me. The museum where I first saw blue and white porcelain. The man who stood beside me that day. James Chen. Just thinking his name made my chest ache. Emily's fever rose again that night. I placed a cool cloth on her forehead and watched her breathe. She looked so small, so fragile. Her skin had grown pale over the past year, and her little hands were always cold now. I thought about all the things I had sacrificed for her. My art, my dreams, my dignity. None of it mattered. I would sacrifice everything 1,000 times over if it meant she could live. Tomorrow I would sell the vase. Tomorrow I would save my daughter. I just didn't know that tomorrow would also bring me face to face with the man who destroyed my life 7 years ago. 7 years ago. Let me tell you about 7 years ago. I was 25. A senior at the Rhode Island School of Design, dreaming of becoming a world-renowned artist. That spring, I met a man at a coffee shop near campus. His name was James Chen. He was 3 years older than me, working at his father's auction house. Tall, quiet, with eyes that seemed to see right through me. I was sketching in my notebook when he sat down across from me. He asked if he could see my work. Most people just glanced at my drawings, but James studied each page like it was a masterpiece. We fell in love quickly. Coffee dates turned into museum visits. Museum visits turned into late-night conversations about art and dreams and the future. That summer, James took me to the Empire State Building. The city lights sparkled below us like 1,000,000 stars. He told me he had never met anyone like me. He said I made him believe in things he had given up on. Then he knelt down and asked me to marry him. I said yes. I said yes without hesitation, because I had never been so sure of anything in my life. He promised me that when we were married, he would buy me an authentic blue and white porcelain vase. He said we would put it in our living room and look at it every day and remember this moment. I believed every word. I was such a fool. 3 months after the proposal, everything changed. James grew distant. He stopped returning my calls. When we did meet, his eyes were cold, like he was looking at a stranger. Then, one October day, he called me to the same coffee shop where we first met. I knew something was wrong the moment I saw his face. It was like stone. He told me we should break up. He said he couldn't marry a struggling artist. He said it would damage his family's reputation. And then he said the words that shattered me. He told me I was just entertainment, a distraction, nothing more. I sat in that coffee shop for hours after he left. The autumn leaves fell outside the window. The coffee went cold, and something inside me died. A month later, I discovered I was pregnant with his child. I never told him. After what he said to me, how could I? I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want my child to have a father who saw us as nothing. So I raised Emily alone, working 3 jobs, living in apartments that got smaller and smaller, crying through nights when I couldn't afford formula. 7 years. 7 years of struggle. 7 years of silence. And now I was about to walk into his auction house and beg for money. Tres Arcadia. The next morning, I stood before Arcadia's Manhattan headquarters, 30 stories of gleaming glass reaching toward the sky. Like a monument to everything I could never have. I looked down at myself, worn jacket, old sneakers, hands rough from years of washing dishes and scrubbing floors. I didn't belong here. Everything about me screamed that I didn't belong. But for Emily, I would walk through those doors. For Emily, I would do anything. The lobby took my breath away. Marble floors that reflected the crystal chandeliers, artwork worth more than I would earn in 10 lifetimes, staff in perfect suits, gliding past with practiced smiles. The receptionist looked at me like I was something stuck to her shoe. She told me appointments were required. Her tone made it clear she didn't expect someone like me to have one. I felt tears building. I had come so far. I couldn't fail now. And then I heard a voice behind me, cold and low. The voice asked what was going on. I turned around, and my heart stopped. James Chen, standing right there. Older now, harder somehow. The CEO of Arcadia, according to the nameplate on the reception desk. He looked at me for a long moment, and then he walked past as if I were a stranger, as if we had never met. 4. The Appraisal. A kind staff member took pity on me and brought me to the appraisal room. I unwrapped the vase with trembling hands. The blue plum blossoms seemed to glow under the lights. The door opened. James walked in. He had come to appraise it himself. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. 7 years of pain stood between us, and he was acting like we had never met. He examined the vase carefully, his face revealing nothing. When he saw a marking on the bottom, something flickered in his eyes, but it vanished just as quickly. He told me the vase would bring 300,000 to 400,000 at auction. I needed 800,000. I told him about Emily. I told him my daughter was dying and I needed more. He was silent for a long moment. Then he offered to buy it directly for 400,000. Cash that same day. I had no choice. I signed the contract. As I walked out of Arcadia, I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask him if he remembered me. I wanted to know how he could stand there so cold, so indifferent, when he had once promised me forever. But his eyes told me everything. To him I was nobody. What I didn't know was that James recognized me the moment I walked into that lobby. He told me later that his heart nearly stopped. 7 years, and I had walked back into his life, carrying the very thing he had once promised to give me. He lied about the vase's value. It was worth over $2 million. He lowballed me because he needed to understand why I was there, why I was desperate enough to sell my family's treasure. And when I mentioned my dying daughter, something clicked in his mind. A daughter. I had a daughter. He did the math. He thought about the timeline, and he began to suspect the truth. That night, after I left, James pulled my file. He found Emily's medical records. Her blood type was listed as Bombay phenotype, the same impossibly rare blood type that ran in his family. His hands shook as he read the report. He went to the hospital the next morning for a compatibility test. The results came back within hours. 99.9% probability of biological relation. Perfect match for bone marrow donation. Emily was his daughter. He had a daughter he never knew existed. And for 7 years, I had struggled alone while he lived in his glass tower, thinking I had simply moved on. I've the truth he hid. Now let me tell you James's side of the story. The side I didn't learn until much later. For 7 years, James had lived in that corner office, surrounded by priceless art and stunning views, and felt nothing but emptiness. Every night, he looked out at the city lights and thought about me. He kept a photograph of us hidden in his desk drawer. Sometimes he would take it out and stare at it for hours. Everyone thought he had everything: money, power, success. But he had lost the only thing that ever mattered to him. He had lost me. And he had done it on purpose. When James saw that DNA report, his world collapsed. He had a daughter, a beautiful 7-year-old girl, who was dying because she didn't have a matching donor, and he was a perfect match. His bone marrow could save her life. But how could he approach me? After what he had said 7 years ago, I must have hated him. I had raised our daughter alone, never once reaching out for help. He knew he had to tell me the truth, not just about Emily, but about why he really left 7 years ago. Because those cruel words he spoke in the coffee shop that day, the words that shattered my heart, they were all lies. Lies he told to save my life. 6. The real story. James came to my apartment that evening. When I opened the door and saw him standing there, I didn't know what to feel. Anger, confusion, fear. He asked me if Emily was his daughter. He told me about the blood test, the compatibility results. He said he knew the truth. I felt the walls I had built over 7 years start to crumble. I demanded to know why he was there. I reminded him of what he had said, that I was just entertainment, a burden to his precious family. And then he did something I never expected. He fell to his knees. He begged me to listen. He said he needed to explain what really happened 7 years ago. 7 years ago, James's uncle was using their family company for money, laundering with organized crime. When the uncle discovered that James was engaged to an art student, he saw an opportunity. He wanted to use me to run fake transactions. He wanted to put illegal deals under my name. James refused, and his uncle threatened to hurt me directly. James was trapped. If he stayed with me, I would become a target. The only way to protect me was to make me hate him so completely that I would disappear from his life. So he said those horrible words. He called me entertainment. He said I was beneath his family. And after I ran out of that coffee shop, he walked into an alley and cried. For the first time since he was a child, he wept. He reported his uncle to the authorities. The uncle was arrested and imprisoned. James spent the next 7 years rebuilding the company from the ashes. But he never stopped thinking about me. He never stopped loving me. He just believed I was better off without him. When he finished telling me this, I couldn't speak. All those years of hatred, all those nights I cursed his name, and he had sacrificed everything to keep me safe. I asked him why he didn't just tell me the truth. I said I could have fought beside him. I said we could have faced it together. He said he couldn't risk my safety. He said he made the choice alone, and he was wrong. He apologized for deciding my fate without asking me, and then he asked for one thing. He asked me to let him save our daughter. 7 crisis. I agreed to let James be Emily's donor. He covered all the surgical costs. Everything was arranged. Then, 3 days before the surgery, the hospital called. Emily had developed an infection. Her fever spiked to dangerous levels. She lost consciousness. The surgery would have to wait until the infection was under control, if it could be controlled at all. I rushed to the hospital and found James already there. We stood outside the ICU, watching our daughter through the glass. Her tiny body was connected to so many machines. The monitors beeped steadily, but every beep felt like it could be the last. I collapsed against the glass. James caught me and held me as I sobbed. For the first time in 7 years, I let myself lean on someone else. We spent 2 days in that hallway. We took turns watching through the glass. We held hands without speaking. I learned more about James in those 2 days than I had in our entire relationship before. I learned that he blamed himself for missing 7 years of Emily's life. I learned that he had kept a photo of me in his desk all this time. I learned that he had never dated anyone else because he couldn't imagine loving anyone but me. On the 3rd day, at 4 in the morning, the doctor came out. He told us Emily's fever was dropping. The infection was under control. We could proceed with the surgery. I crumpled to the floor with relief. James knelt beside me and held me tight. He whispered that she was going to be okay. Our daughter was going to live. 8. The surgery. Surgery day arrived. Emily was scared. As they wheeled her toward the operating room, she grabbed James's hand. She told him she was frightened. He knelt beside the gurney and promised her that when she woke up, she would be all better. He promised we would all go to the amusement park together. He asked her if she could be brave for just a little longer. She nodded, her eyes still wet with tears. I kissed her forehead and told her she was my most precious treasure. I told her I loved her more than anything in the world. The doors closed, and we waited. 8 hours. 8 hours of pacing and praying and holding on to each other. Finally, the surgeon emerged. He pulled off his mask and he was smiling. He told us the surgery was a complete success. The bone marrow had engrafted perfectly. Emily was going to make a full recovery. I fell to my knees, weeping with relief and gratitude. James knelt beside me, tears streaming down his own face. Our daughter was saved. After everything, after all the pain and struggle and heartbreak, our little girl was going to live. 9 becoming family. A month later, Emily was recovering beautifully. Color had returned to her cheeks. Her hands were warm again. She laughed and played like a normal 7-year-old should. One afternoon, she looked at James with curious eyes. She asked me if he was her daddy. She said he came to visit every day, just like her friends' daddies did. I looked at James. He looked at me. I nodded. He knelt down to her level and told her yes. He said he was her daddy. Emily threw her arms around his neck and called him daddy for the first time. She said she had always wanted a daddy. James held our daughter and wept. 7 years of absence, forgiven in a single embrace. A few weeks later, James came to my apartment with a large box. He opened it, and inside was my mother's Ming Vase. I was confused. I thought he had sold it. He told me he never sold it. The $400,000 he gave me was his own money. He couldn't let me lose my mother's inheritance. I asked him why he lied about its value. He admitted he was testing me. He wanted to understand why I was really there. But when he saw how much I was willing to sacrifice for Emily, he realized who I truly was. He apologized for ever doubting me. I held the vase and cried. My mother's voice echoed in my memory, telling me to protect it no matter what. James took my hands and made a new promise. He said we would protect it together now, and someday we would pass it down to Emily. 10. The proposal. That summer, James took me back to the Empire State Building. The same observation deck where he had proposed 7 years ago, the same city lights twinkling below. He told me he had something for me. He pulled out a small box. Inside was not a diamond ring. It was a pendant made from a shard of blue and white porcelain. He explained that this piece came from a broken Ming vase. It had been shattered and discarded, but someone had found the fragments and made them into something new, something beautiful. He said we were like that vase. We had been broken, shattered into pieces. But we could put ourselves back together. We could become something stronger than before. Then he asked me to marry him. I said yes. That autumn we had a small wedding. Nothing extravagant. Just family and close friends. Emily walked ahead of us, carrying a basket of flowers, beaming with joy. When we exchanged our vows, I thought about everything that had brought us to this moment. The pain, the sacrifice, the misunderstandings, the years apart. All of it had led here. To this day, to this family. Even James's mother came. She had apologized for everything she had done to drive me away years ago. She knelt before Emily and embraced her granddaughter for the first time. She thanked me through her tears. She thanked me for forgiving them. 11 Epilogue 10 years later. 10 years have passed since that surgery. I am 52 now. There is gray in my hair and more lines on my face, but I have never been happier. Emily is 17. She is beautiful and talented and wants to be an artist, just like I once dreamed of being. She is applying to art schools now. She told me she wants to paint the way I always wanted to but never could. I told her she would be so much better than I ever could have been. We had another child, a son named Daniel, now 8 years old. He looks exactly like his father. Serious and thoughtful, but he has my stubborn streak. The Ming Vase still sits in our living room. It has become more than an heirloom. It is a symbol of everything our family has survived. One quiet evening, James and I sat together in the living room. The children were asleep. The house was peaceful. He asked me if I was happy. I told him I was. Every day, every single day since he came back into my life. He took my hand and thanked me for forgiving him. He thanked me for giving us another chance. I squeezed his hand and thanked him too, for saving Emily, for never giving up, for coming home. There is a Japanese art called kintsugi. It is the practice of repairing broken pottery with gold. The cracks are not hidden. They are highlighted. The damage becomes part of the beauty. That is our family. We have scars. We have cracks. We have years of pain and misunderstanding woven into our history. But those cracks have made us stronger, more grateful, more loving. To anyone listening to my story, I want you to know this. Do not give up. No matter how dark things seem, no matter how broken you feel, there is hope. Love can return. Families can be rebuilt. Second chances exist. I am living proof. My name is Sarah Mitchell Chen. I am 52 years old, and I have finally found my happily ever after. Thank you for listening.